sound word for word.
Yeah, so, okay, great. Thank you, Manuel.
Okay, so with that, I'll let Dr. Enriquez go on with his presentation, and then we'll reserve some time at the end for some questions and answers. So again, welcome, Jose, and when you're ready, go ahead.
Well, muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Manuel. It's been a while. It's been a bit. Actually, I got an email and I said, I knew a Manuel a while back. It's been a little bit, but I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I remembered our interactions and so forth. And I've been listening to you guys just sitting here, and you know, I always say that I stand on some amazing shoulders of people who've come before us in different states, the Four Corners area, that have you know, provided a way for us younger Latino leaders to really take flight. And so I first of all want to commend y'all for all that you've done to prepare the way and help us as we try to do the work today with these young people who really need us. And one of the things I always like to say is that they need us, but they're also tienen hambre. They're also very hungry to lead, hungry to serve. They're brilliant. They're talented. They have so much that they have to offer. And what they need is a plataforma, a platform where they can showcase their talents away from, you know, everything else that's taken them in so many directions. And so I'd like to say that my favorite thing to do is to create platforms where these young people can showcase the various talents and assets. One being that a lot of them are bilingual, bicultural, and we need them and a must have them understand that these are assets and that they're balanced together, that they're that much more powerful, especially in our communities. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. And if you hopefully, are you able to see my screen? Can you see my screen?
It's coming up, yes.
Okay, perfect. Now yeah, my desktop looks like my schedule in life. So don't mind that. I usually, let's see, I can move this around here. I'm going to try to, there we go. Okay. I always start here, and I'll keep this this slide up because I want to see what's coming next. Is I need to alter some of the things that I'm going to say, knowing my audience. And I still think that no matter where we are in this process of helping our youth, you're still the one. And I say that to many educators, administrators, superintendents alike, and all those that help our youth. You know, no matter if we're barely coming into the profession or finishing that profession, or retired and coming back, you're still needed now more than ever. Our youth, even though people think that they don't like structure or they don't, you know, want it, that's what they need in so many ways. And I want to kind of help you understand right now what's going on. But as I travel across this country, Latinos in Action is an organization. It's a class, it's a course, it's an elective course at the middle school and high school, right? It's not a after school program. It's not a club. It's a course. So math, science, Latinos in Action, right? In their schedule. And I'll help you understand how I was able to do that. But our kids, when they enter, when I go across this nation, I'm beginning to see that not only are they hungry to lead and serve, but they're hungry to be seen. Simple as that. They want us to know that they're there, and they want to listen. They want us to listen to them. And you know, I don't think it's any different from, you know, any other generation, but this generation for sure, because of all the things that they're into, social media and so forth, they're stuck in these screens, and so they don't get the social interaction that they should and need. So one of the things that I want to show when we go across the 14 states that we're in, we see young people that also want to showcase their talents. And so one of the things Latinos in Action does, so I'm gonna start here with this video because I want to just kind of help you understand the end in mind and have the end in mind. Our youth, not only are they talented, with all the gifts that they've been given, but they're also very talented in giving and serving and leading in their communities. And I want them to know that that's possible. So this conference here is at the University of Utah. It's at the Huntsman Center. We started Latinos in Action. I started it 21 years ago, and I'll explain that in a little bit and how I got started. But in the 22 years of a labor of love, what I've seen is that these kids, when you bring them together for a purpose, that's where things become powerful, and they begin to use their voice, and not only that, but begin to lead and create leadership. I'm going to play this. This was, I think, last year's conference at the Huntsman Center, about 3,000 students. We are in about 130 schools here in Utah that run Latinos in Action. And the Huntsman Center is one of our bigger conferences. We have one at Weber State, just like this at the U, and we used to have it at UVU. We kind of alternate now at BYU, and some others. But I'm gonna play this. We have a keynote speaker, we have workshops, but more than anything, our young people get to see themselves on stage. We have an essay contest, a poem contest, scholarships, etc. Okay, I'll play this. Hopefully you get the sound.
I'm not getting any sound.
Are you getting sound?
No.
I was afraid of that. No sound? That's what makes it awesome. Let me see. Oh.
Sometimes it's this sound on your computer, not so much the YouTube, or not so much presentation.
Also, Jose, if you get out of share screen and get back in, there are two buttons at the bottom before you share that allow you to put sound and optimize your screen.
Okay.
Did you see that?
Let's see. Get out of share screen. Sorry about this.
Right.
Yeah. There it is.
Get out of the Zoom share screen, everything.
So get out of that.
Yeah. And then start over.
Stop sharing. Okay.
Now, when you click share screen, on the bottom of it, we'll ask you that two buttons. One is audio and visual, and click those two.
Share sound. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see my screen again?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Perfect. Again.
La boda la celebraban en la selva del coyote. La boda la celebraban en la selva del coyote estaban los guajolotes cantando bien hacia azotes, estaban bien borrachotes cuando llegó el tecolote, calmándoles el mitote. Hoy se casó el Huitlacoche con una urraca famosa, la boda la celebraban allá por la rumorosa, la boda la celebraban allá por la rumorosa.
You guys are very talented. Tenemos mucho talento en nuestra cultura. We have a lot of talent, and we gotta harness that and use it for good. Porque you guys are special. And if anything you take away from today, I've got a saying that it sounds better in Spanish, and I'll say it in Spanish, then I'll say it in English. But I got a saying that I always like to say, and it goes like this: Se vale soñar en grande. In other words, it's okay to dream big. However, it's okay if and only if you are willing to work hard to turn that dream into reality. Hay que convertir ese sueño en la realidad, con esfuerzo, con trabajo, con sacrificio, with a lot of work, with a lot of sacrifice.
Como nos los invitaron, varios estaban muy buenos. Abajo en un patiecito había unos correcaminos. Arriba en unas piedrotas estaban unas huilotas, echándose una grandota. Con una urraca famosa, la boda la celebraban allá por la rumorosa, la boda la celebraban allá por la rumorosa. ¡Vamos a! ¡Uy, uy, uy!
I'm glad I got the sound. Yeah, let's see if I can. Okay. Love those kids. As you can see, we had our keynote speaker, it was Jose Hernandez. You know, what's great about Jose is that he was in the middle. Well, actually, he had just finished his film, A Million Miles Away. If you haven't seen that film, powerful film to watch with family. Our youth loved it. They're watching it. Obviously, I have been watching it, but we got a sneak peek before it came out because he came to 14 of our conferences with us. Wow. And this, yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, he could have been anywhere, you know, could have been doing a lot of things. And what I love about him is that he took the time to speak to our young people across this nation. And not obviously not all, but in the 14 states that we're in. And I was grateful for him to take the time to do that. Obviously, it wasn't a pretty penny, but we, you know, he gave us a major discount and also just knew our plight, knew that our young people just need to hear words of inspiration, motivation. And then he came with us, right? And he toured with us. Of course, it helped him in promoting his film, but I think more than anything to have him have our young people understand that, you know, it took him 12 times. He was rejected 12 times from NASA, but for our young people to hear that it's okay to fail, that it's okay to be rejected, to not have everything, you know, instantly in your hand. Was powerful. You know, of course, his story from a farmer, immigrant farm worker to space is incredible as well. But anyway, these conferences are done in our schools every year. We have a conference, we have a keynote, we have workshops, etc. but more than anything, we want them on campus, on a university campus. And you know, not everybody's going to go D1. Not everybody's going to go to JC. We have the tech colleges also there on campus, interviewing and presenting to our youth. We have various different organizations there so that they know that, you know, there's various different pathways. Whether you want to be an electrician, a dental hygienist, attorney, whatever it is, we want you to just continue post-secondary, right? That's our goal. I'm gonna, before I continue with Latinos in Action, I want to give you guys my story, because I think stories are powerful. Our young people need to hear our stories. You know, especially today, for some reason, when I tell my story, so many kids and others relate, because we have so many, you know, different things in common, but they need to hear it from all of us, because for some reason they feel like they need some license to tell their story. And it's not so, right? I think this nation suffers from what I call narration sickness. We fail to narrate our stories like we ought to. And so I always tell it, because I think it's important to never forget it and understand that it'll fix somebody, and it'll help somebody understand that that part of their story is important as well. I'm originally from El Salvador. Soy salvadoreño. My mom came in a hard time. You know, my dad wanted us to till the land, to work the land, trabajar la tierra. Mi mamá, you know, obviously knew El Salvador in the 70s, mid 70s, 80s, when I was born in the 70s, really was war torn. If you recall, Iran-Contra, all the mess that was going on in Central America, and our people suffered for all that junk and didn't really know the war they were fighting. It was sad. My grandma, abuelita, right at the left, really coursed, said to my mom, "You got to go." So she left, and she left us with her for 3 years in El Salvador. My mom went to LA. My dad stayed. They split. So there was a lot of hardship there. We were then reunited with my mom 3 years later. My grandma took us early 79, 80, when many Salvadoreños fled El Salvador. So happy for that country. Things are turning around. This president, we'll see what happens. But I think a lot of our people suffered so long with so many different things. I'm grateful that, you know, I have a trabajadora mother. She's pretty incredible. Yeah, my hero. But she, I always tell young people that a veces se nos olvida el sacrificio that they, you know, that plight they take for us. And so in this class, we help our young people understand their stories, but not only that, but kind of be able to understand how to leverage that sacrificio and leverage everything that has been given to them, especially today. You know, they have so much. So one thing that we do in Latinos in Action is we help them not only see their stories, but be able to tell their stories through their actions, through the things that they're going to do to change perhaps the poverty cycle, perhaps some of the things that they want to change for their familias. I got to LA, and of course, I was a second language learner, struggled with English, had a great teacher. To this day, this is why I think mentors are so key and important. Educators are so key and important. But she didn't really want to do what other teachers did, you know, pass you along. From kinder to about 5th grade, I was just passed along, you know. And back in the day, yes, I was in, but I remember it was just, you know, you were taking out a class called Chapter 1. I can't remember what it was called. I would say latchkey kid was the term. A lot of things were happening, and you know, it was important that teachers really connected with their with the students, and some did and some didn't. This one really did. She really took time to know more about me. but she would always ask kids, like, I've noticed, right? And one day she kind of touched my hair, and my hair has always been like this, it's really shiny. I've always, my mom, I have the same haircut I had back then. My mom would always, we were poor, but, and she would always say to us, we went to the lavanderia, the bakery, panaderia, any store. Anytime we left the house, we had to be pristine, like nice, combed. She would never let us outside unless we were really well groomed. And she would always say, somos pobres, pero nadie va a saber. We're poor, but nobody's ever gonna know. She's like, you're rich here, you're rich here. We're not poor. And that's just her mentality. But I remember that this teacher touched my hair, and she's like, how do you keep it so shiny? And, we were poor. We didn't have money. So we couldn't afford the Aquanet and all the different things that you put on your hair back then. The Tres Flores, everything. It was too expensive. So I told my teacher, she kind of opened me up, and I said, it's a secret. And she's like, tell me your secret. And I told her my mom has a plant, una planta in the back of her yard, Savila. And she puts it on everything when we're sick. She uses it when we're, everything you can think of. One day I played with it and it was sticky. And then I used it and put it in my hair. And my teacher started laughing, but she opened me up, which was what she wanted to do. She trusted me and I trusted her. And finally, that silent moment became, I became a whole different person because of that relationship. And that relationship went a long way. She said to me, hey, take this book. Remember that PH is an F sound. And I went home, and what I read about was photosynthesis, which to me, I was just happy that I could pronounce the word. And it was awesome. But what was powerful about this word was that I stepped into the world of science, and I began to imagine, and I began to create in my mind visuals, right? And, textbooks back then was just, there was hardly any, pictures. And that's why I hated reading. But this photosynthesis became real to me because I thought, well, plants could create their own food inside, right? It was kind of this cool, amazing idea, thought, visual, right? So I kind of created it in my mind, and I memorized this process, memorized the words, memorized everything because I ate it up and thought, wow, like plants could make tamales inside, right? Pupusas. As a kid, you just start imagining these things, and it was this word that just became powerful for me. So I went to class the next day. Obviously, Miss Yard said, does anybody know what photosynthesis is? And I'm not stereotyping, but most of the time, it was the chinitos that were always raising their hands. They're all really sharp kids. But about 4 of them were absent that day, so nobody was answering. And Miss Yard was like, Jose, and like I didn't really want to get up. So I sat in the back. I never raised my hand, but I stood up and said, photosynthesis is the process in which plants create their own foods, the sun's ray. I just kind of memorized the whole process and gave it to everybody, and everybody was staring at me. And at that moment, it was awesome. I was on a stage, and it was a delicious stage because I was teaching, and I was actually stating something and people were listening. And for the first time, this is sad, I felt smart, right? It took a teacher to create a stage for me to showcase my brilliance. But it's rare that we often can kind of capture that moment. And I actually captured it. I loved that stage where you could teach something and people listened and they got it, and it felt really good, right? So in the same manner, I'm still teaching, right? with this word. One word could shift. Words are powerful, so powerful that I learned with this word back then, and I'm learning, and you're learning with this word now. Photosynthesis. You'll always remember this story, because how often do you hear photosynthesis? But when you remember it, you'll remember this, right? That's how powerful words are, that I can still teach with this word, right? And I think that our young people, they need these stages that we can create where they can showcase that talent, that brilliance. And if it happens to be with a word, well, so be it, right? But I think palabras are important. I had another mentor. This is how I got to Utah, actually. This is in LA, East LA. He just retired, my coach he used to coach at East Los College, JC there. He coached at the high school first, and then at East Los. But he kind of picked me up and just saw me running around and said, "Hey, come wrestle." I was like, I don't know if I want to wear that thing. Like, I don't want to wear that singlet. And he's like, "No, you won't have to." Completely lied to me. Completely. He just took me to the first tournament. Ref's like, come here. You got to put this on. I'm like, nah, I'm not putting it on. I walked away. My coach is like, "I'll give you $20. I was like, all right, let's go. Money back then, for me, $20 is a lot of money. So I put that thing on and started wrestling. And he knew, it's just about mentors that, they know your potential. He saw a lot in me that I had no idea. Like, he just saw it, and he believed me. He believed in me, and then I believed him. I guess there's a two-way street there, right? We got to believe in them and believe their potential and believe in their potential. But they also have got to put their part, right? You've got to believe that you can. And that takes a little bit. It doesn't take too much, but I think that we can have them believe. That obviously, that belief, took me to a whole different spot. I was a California state champion at my junior year. Nobody could touch me. He had prepared me, but taught me discipline, work ethic, time management. I mean, professionalism. He taught me so much. He's a great mentor of mine. Was a counselor in high school. Was a counselor for East Los, and just stalwart. He's just amazing. But instead of me following my boys, because there were so many that wanted to leave school, they followed me. So a lot of my friends began to wrestle, play football. And I think the reality is that we have more influence than we think. He knew that. He captured my attention. Then he said, "Hey, there's universities here wanting you to go wrestle for them." I said, "Well, I won't go anywhere unless they pay everything, because I don't want my mom to work any harder. She's cleaned houses." And so my coach was like, "Well, there's this university. It's BYU. They want to pay everything." And I'm like, they're gonna pay everything? Like, yeah, they're gonna give you full ride. I was like, "Man, they're gonna give me a ride?" He's like, "No, not that kind of a ride. They're gonna pay your books, your tuition, your room and board. They're gonna pay everything." And I said, "Okay, well, let's go." And I said, Where's BYU at?" And he's like, It's in Provo, Utah. And I'm like, "Well, where's that?" And this is how he got me to get out there. He's like, "It's just a little past Vegas," is what he said. And so he took me on this trip, and fell in love, with just everything I saw. I think that so many of young people don't, now it's a little easier because you have internet and social media and all that, but they don't always get to see things in vivo and live. But when I saw canyons and rivers, and I was just like, wow, this is dumbstruck, because, in LA, you read the magazines, you watch it on TV, but then now you start to name it. So when I got out here, it was just a whole different thing than just East LA, right? And I began to learn and grow. Let me just talk here, and then I'll jump into Latinos in Action. But when I got to Utah, it's a culture shock for me. In the early 90s, still a lot of change happening. I went to my first English class, and this is exactly what I looked like. I felt like a fish out of water. I was just like, I'm out. I remember calling my mom, actually. I'm like, I'm coming back. I'm like, Mom, hello? My mom had hung up. She was like, you ain't coming back. You're going to figure it out. I love my mom. She's tough. She's tough as now. She was like, nope, you're going to stay there. But I remember this class. This professor was like, I want you guys to write a 10-page paper on networking. And I thought, networking? Que la fregada. What is that? And back then, of course, you're not going to Google anything because there was no internet. I think AOL was barely coming out. Your email was just happening. So you got to go to the library, look up all the stuff, like the index card. Y'all remember? And then just started reading. And what I wrote about is this mango tree that I used to climb in El Salvador. It was awesome. This mango, in El Salvador, it's not mangoes, it's like mangoes. And you remember eating them, filling up your face, throwing the seed down, going to the next branch, getting some mangoes. And I remember that one day I threw the seed down and it hit this kid, pass. And the kid looked up and he's like, tírame uno, give me one. And I'm like, which one do you want? And I threw it to him, and then there's a whole crowd of kids that are like, throw me one. So I kept thinking, man, maybe I could make bank, right? So before I would throw the mango, I would say, give me 5 of your best chivolas, canicas, marbles. That's what our currency was, right? Because we weren't, we were poor. Money it was more like your marbles that you played with, and they're the money that we had. So, eventually you come down from the tree after eating so many mangoes, or else you got chorro going on. So I went down and I began to collect my marbles, each of the little pueblitos. And I remember telling the kids, like, don't get my marbles. Go get me some leche or some milk or queso, but don't tell your mom, And so they'd go get it, and I'd barter. And then I'd take it home, and my mom would be like, where'd you get that? And I'm like, friends just had extras or whatever, let's to make up stories. But I began to really create this sense of urgency to get things. So I wrote about this in my paper, and my professor's like, hey, stay after class. And I'm like, oh, he didn't like my story. He sat me down and he's like, your grammar's horrible, but your ideas were powerful. He's like, nobody in this whole place could help me understand networking like you did. I visually saw you networking, bartering with your friends, right? And he just said, I love this. And he began to help me understand that our young people come with schema. And the schemata is the same schema that Miss Yard, this earlier teacher with photosynthesis, began to awaken in me. Schema is this like brilliant residual, I guess, if you will, all the part of your brain that holds all the amazing experiences we have and all the different activities that we do growing up, and it's dormant sometimes, and what we need to do is wake that schema up, because when you wake schema up in our young people and you combine it with academia, it's powerful, because schemata, the schema that they bring, nobody brings to the table like you do, right? And I want our young people to understand that what they bring to the table, nobody has. And whether it be through papers or whatever it is that they're going to share, how do they share it and how they combine it with academia, that's when things become flavorful. I'm going to say that. I wanted to do the same thing, and it's how I started Latinos in Action. I used my schema, everything that helped me growing up in El Salvador, Los Angeles, getting to BYU, Utah. What I did is gathered all those main things, I would say, schemas and stages that were created for me. And I took that and I wanted to create it for our youth. So when I did my master's and my PhD, that's exactly what I did. I wanted to create curriculum and a place where kids understood themselves. First of all, identity. Who am I and what role do I play in this community? And I wanted them to also have a place where they can shine. Of course, this moment was huge for me. Before I get into how Latinos in Action is set up, I do want to, emphasize story and acknowledge, my mom, because this is when I received my PhD. She came out for my graduation, flew out from LA. Nothing like it. I always say this moment is everything. And knowing and understanding that her sacrificio, paved the way. And what was funny though, at this moment, my mom turned to me and she said, "¿Y qué?" Right? Like, "Y ahora qué?" And I was like, dang, she's real though. My mom was like, basically saying like, all right, you have a PhD, you have a doctorate, like, so what? Like, what are you going to do with it? Basically what she was saying, like, what good does it do to have a PhD if you can't help your people? I mean, that's exactly what she said, really, in her words. And that's when, I had more of a wake-up call to say, she's totally right. And so this is also why I launched Latinos in Action, because I wanted to help our young people understand their talents, their assets, their brilliance. I'm going to fast forward and you've already know that he was our keynote. We've had different keynotes for our kids before that are now playing big on stage. But our growth with Latinos in Action has happened tremendously. From 2016 to 2020, we have to even put 2023 here. We've grown even from last year, has tripled. We were in 123 schools, 32 districts, 6 states. And then within that time, just 13, 14 now, actually 15 states and over 70 school districts and over 350 schools now. And we have to update this, but continues to grow. And the reason why this continues to grow is because our young people are hungry. They want a stage. They want somewhere to showcase their talents. But our systems are not set up for that. They're set up to showcase somebody else's talent, and not always ours. And this is why I called it Latinos in Action, because, and even today, there's superintendents or people that are like, well, why don't you call it Leaders in Action? I'm like, no, this is purposeful. I want them to know that they're brilliant, they're talented, and I want it to be cool and awesome to be Latino, college bound, and a leader. We continue to get some pushback, but it's so, there's so much of it right now. They can't really rebuttal service and leadership. So I'm gonna help you understand the essentials of Latinos in Action. I'll be really quick here. I started Latinos in Action because when I was a teacher, I was teaching. I saw I saw many of our kids in Provo, was where I started. I was going to go back to LA. I thought, I'll stay here for a bit. And I saw this huge need. They weren't getting involved. They weren't going on. Graduation was not happening for them. So I told my principal, let me take 35 of these kids and teach them Spanish for natives. I knew he would go for that. So I took 35 and I began to teach them about Latino heroes, because there aren't any in our history books, like I wanted them to reach for heroes. Like Rigoberta Menchú, Pablo Neruda, Marquez, Cesar Chavez. There's so many. Maybe in our history books we get a paragraph on Cesar Chavez, But as I began to teach them about Latino heroes, I took a step back and I thought we could teach them about Latino heroes or we can create our own. And I think we can do both. But I wanted to take that and shift my thought and said, we need to create our own heroes from within our own system. So I want to help you understand how I did that. Of course, first of all, we need to help our young people understand that they need to help each other. So the makeup of this class is a 30-40-30. 30% of the class are high achievers, kids that are doing well, 3.0, 3.8, 4.0 students, athletes, choir, band, that are involved, that have navigated or understood how to navigate the system. We need them in this class. 40% of the kiddos are those invisible kids just coasting through the motions. Your long-term ESL's kids, the kids traviesos a veces, but they're there, but just kind of there. They're invisible. They're not really. So we need them in this class because we want them to see their potential. And obviously, the other 30% are your ESL, your newcomers, your immigrant students. We need them in this class because they bring so much schema that first tier really needs. Because sometimes that higher end achiever tier, they begin to forget their language and their cultura. But if you have them with the new incoming, they're going to pull them back and say, look, well, you need this, right? And they need each other. So this 30-40-30 model is awesome because our kids should be helping each other. They shouldn't be in silos and cliques. And, this becomes then a unified front for our youth, right? That they help each other. And in Florida, actually, it's a 30-40-40. They actually love their owls out there. They support them. Florida actually has more Latinos in action than Utah now. So it surpassed Utah. Our owls are important. A second essential to Latinos in Action is that they mentor and tutor during this class time, twice a week, local elementary school, and they read with our owls, with the littles. And what this does is it creates our heroes, right? This is where you start creating your own heroes from within. We've been 20 years into this. We have a lot of Latino in Action teachers who went on to teach. We have alumni who are teaching, and our first 2 administrators, right? So you see that you're creating a pipeline of not just educators, but professionals. But these young ones, these little ones are going to soon want to be in middle school and be in Latinos in Action, and in high school and be in Latinos in Action. That's the whole idea, is to create our heroes from within our own system. We have them. They're powerful. They're amazing if you help them see the trajectory, right? So this is why we also have them do this second essential. It's very important. The third essential is that they're put into committees, a professional committee, a service committee, a social committee. They're put into these teams. There's a VP per committee. There's a president, secretary, historian. So they begin to understand leadership. They begin to understand how to write a proposal to the principal about the first service project they want to do with National Honor Society, or the first social event they want to do with student council, or a professional event where they run a lecture series where they invite you to come and speak to them, right? Through the class, every other Friday, they get a professional to come talk about pathways, how they got there, and what is needed, right? So all these things it's very interactive. If you go to a social media and just Google Instagram, Twitter, anything Latinos in Action, you'll begin to see what they do, because they post, all the historians post. And now they're on social media for good stuff and not just junk. And they follow each other and they get ideas from each other from across the nation, right? Very active young people in our communities. And our last essential is this curriculum. So if they're not in committee, if they're not tutoring their mentee or tutee, then the teacher's delivering this curriculum. There's high school curriculum, there's middle school curriculum. And we actually just launched elementary Latinos in Action, 2 pilot schools. There's curriculum, right? There's units like relationship, personal goals, financial responsibility, leadership in action, service learning, academics, professionalism, self-discipline, self-reliance, etc. Right? Tutoring. Each unit has 10 lesson plans. They have their objectives, their intro. It's all set up for the teacher on a click, right? It's very teacher friendly. There's dashboards for them. Guided practice, differentiation ideas, extensions, it's all there for them. This is when I got to take some students to the White House. It was great. great to be there. Yeah, enjoyed that time with them. This is our first elementary Latinos in Action that we just launched this year. We're excited about this because the younger we can start them, the better. They performed. This is in Florida, in Pinellas County. This is in USF. And it was cool to hear this first group perform. I was dumbfounded. What was powerful about that is that they did it in front of 1,000 high schoolers and middle schoolers. So, I mean, if you watch their faces, no fear whatsoever. That's what I love about elementary, and I can't wait to launch more elementary. We have a pilot school in Heber Valley, Utah, and one in Pinellas. We're just looking at that before we launch it completely. But I think they're gonna rock everything. They're just so eager. And they want to lead, they want to learn, and I don't know why we didn't do it earlier, but timing is everything, and I think it's time. Yes, tiempo, that our young people are invited to not just the table but to lead. We do have a dual enrollment course. Latinos in Action is not dual enrollment in Idaho, and in the state of Washington they have dual enrollment as well. At Skagit Valley, we hope that Utah can get on board and do the same. I'll skip this because I think I'm running out of time. We have a boot camp, leadership boot camps in the summer at Utah State, at the U, and other places. Talk about masterminds we lead. We've worked with Real Salt Lake to run some programming there with them, called Sábado Gigante, where we bring parents and students to a career fair on site before the game, and then we give them tickets to the game. So it's been awesome. I am going to stop here. I know that I'm running out of time. I just want to, first of all, just say that I really believe that our youth are ready. Not only ready, but they have so much schema that we need to provide stages for them to showcase their talent and assets. But I honestly, I think true leadership doesn't necessarily come from those who seek a position or that position, but from those who can position themselves to serve those who seek. And there's so many in our communities that seek so many things. And if we can position ourselves to serve them, I think that's real leadership. So I'm just going to end with that. Again, true leadership doesn't necessarily come from those who seek that position, but from those who can position themselves to serve those who seek. And again, I think I see a lot of leaders here who've done that, and I appreciate, again, all that you've done to support and to help us now that we're creating, I would say, this movement for our young people to showcase their talents. So, muchísimas gracias for having me here.
I think everybody's on mute, so you can unmute yourselves to ask. But thank you so much. It was a great presentation. Loved it. Loved it.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was so impressed because I know as one of the people who, on this meeting who grew up in Utah, I didn't have my first Latino teacher until I got to the University of Utah.
That's right.
Never had a Latino teacher. And I know that makes a big difference because I remember how I felt even as at that point I was in my 20s, but I know how that felt. It was a very different experience for me having a Latino teacher versus all the teachers I'd had, majority at the university. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Enriquez?
Yeah, I do. So, Jose, this is Manuel. So, great program. Obviously, I've been involved with it and known about it for years. What are some of the things that we as a community can do to support Latinos in Action? Because I think that it's something, you know, and you hit it on the nail on the head. You know, when we need to, we have leaders, we just need to help get them out. We have to help them grow and demonstrate their skills. So, what are things that not just us, but the general public can do to support Latinos in Action?
You know, I think one of the things right now for us is we are trying to first get the word out. Some people just don't know what they don't know. You know, there are kids in our schools even that still don't know that there's Latinos in Action and the opportunities, right? So I think obviously advocacy for you all to have heard it and to say, hey, I know this great program, y'all should be involved. So and any stage of whatever your day looks like and you interact with people, it's always great to have advocacy and help people understand what we do and what we are. And they can go to our webpage, and we also have volunteer opportunities. So that conference, we're going to have it again, and it's going to be in April, May, and at the U. We have one at Weber. So there are opportunities that we love volunteers for our parents when they get there. So we just added a parent strand to that conference. So we want to bring parents, because parents are like, well, we want to see Jose Hernandez, right? Or where's our scholarship, right? Like the fathers are like, what about us, right? So I need help, right? I wish I could do more of that. We just received a grant from Carnegie for family engagement and parental involvement. But, you know, we always need bodies. We need people who can come help support us during that day, but also who can come speak to our youth during that class time. The professional committee, they love to hear from others who are at their tail end of their career or in the career, and they want to know about pathways. How did they get there? What are some pitfalls they need to avoid, right? Knowledge is powerful for them, but they don't always hear it because they're on all this other junk. I want them to hear from real people, right? So I think time, talent, funds, anything that you can help us with that way. You can go to our webpage and it does say, how would you like to help us? But I think also your local schools, any of you, if you're here in Utah, we are in Colorado also. We are in Arizona and New Mexico también. We just started in New Mexico. They will have Latinos in Action. If they don't, we'd love for your principalship or that school district that you're in to start Latinos in Action. So advocacy, I would say, is the best way to help us in spreading the word.
Dr. Enriquez, this is Chuck Lovato talking. One of the things of our group is we're the Genealogical Society. We're all very much a lot older than the young kids that we see on your screen. And I guess I'm going to ask you, how can we tap into that young resource to I've heard this many times from many of the members saying we need to get more younger people, a younger group involved. And I can see where we could use that kind of help in many, many things that need to be done to increase the work that needs to be done to make our own heroes or to recognize heroes that we already have amongst them.
That's exactly right. I know one of our years, I'd say about 9 years ago, our theme. So this year's theme was Stronger Together, or Stand for More. 1 year was Heroes Among Us. And I agree with you, there are many. So each of our schools, they have a leadership team. One of them is the service committee, and they have a whole slew of young people that they're looking for this. They're looking for opportunities to serve. Sometimes they just don't have a list and we give them lists and they'll pick, but sometimes if we don't know, we don't know, right? So I'd love to have this as an opportunity for them to serve, we would just need to come up with some thought on how that would take place and be more intentional about it, right? Intentionality is what moves things. And we can say things right now and say that'll be great, but until you're intentional and make it happen, then it becomes action. So I'd love to, if you put it in the chat or give it to Manuel, a place where we can go or they can go and begin to have that conversation on logistics.
Well,
I have a question.
go ahead.
Go ahead,
you-
Margie.
So you said you just received a grant from the Carnegie. How did you first get funded?
Well, that grant was just for parent and parent engagement and family engagement. Our programming is mostly in the middle and high school, but we knew that we needed to get parent and family engagement. We knew it a long time ago, but we needed a big grant, and Carnegie provided that. So, but our first, major grant that we had as Latinos in Action was probably 2001, 2002, from a Utah State professor that was interested in training our students to be student paras. That was the first very big one. And then we just, we diversify our funds with donation sponsors, foundations, a fee schedule. So schools now pay, obviously, to launch this as well, and then grants. So we diversify our funding that way. And grants have been always like from DWS, Department of Workforce Services, grants from the state, and other grants that we've received.
Well, I'm really impressed because I've heard of Latinos in Action, but I always thought it was an after-school program. So to be part of the school, that's so impressive. I'm a social worker, and in the past I was a probation officer. And so when we helped kids, it was one-on-one and sticking with them like your teacher did. And some of them have moved on and coming out of the state industrial school, moved on to community college. And I had one kid like you had to write a paper and didn't know what he was doing. So the teacher told him, write what you know. So he talked about how he burglarized a house, but he got his point across. And then he eventually went up to the U. But we've had students with our Chicano scholarship that have come through, been involved in your program. And I did not know it was that intense. I am so impressed. But we also had IHRD, which changed to La Familia, which did outreach services to families, but not that cohesiveness that you are providing the students, because it's all one-on-one. And I think that cohesiveness is so important. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question, and it's kind of personal.
Yeah.
You had a strong mother, but you also had these mentors. Your fourth grade ESOL teacher, I think, and your wrestling coach. Were they invited to your graduation?
They were. Actually, my coach, my coach came out. My coach has come to all my graduations. He's a great mentor. He's a father figure of mine. Like, he really stepped into that just that whole role. Great gentleman. And still keep in touch with him even after he retired from East Los. My teacher, Miss Yard, I've lost contact with her. And I think she's passed since, but I had contact with her and some other mentors, teachers that I still keep in touch with. But she was not my ESL teacher. She was just straight up good teacher, that understood the need to capture, my attention. So, yeah.
Oh, that's very, really touching. Very impressive. I think the important thing too is the one thing that I have noticed, and I don't have a lot of, well, I have few young people in my life, but so many of the Latino kids that I've known who know nothing about their history. They don't know anything about the history here, because this is part of, this part of the country is part of our history. they don't understand their history and or their personal history. And I think that's really what it would help to get kids interested in their own history, is to just let them find out that they do have a place here, because none of that is ever taught.
Yeah.
They learn about
Yeah.
the English arriving and how the U.S. became how the United States covered all of what is now the United States. They learned that history,
Yeah.
but they don't
Yeah.
understand how their own history is also part of it.
No, I agree, and that's what we're shifting. Right? But we have them really take a deep dive into their own history. That's one of the first units. Is we got to have them know who they are. Identity is key. So that's one of the first lessons and units. And they actually go interview their padres, their abuelos. It's a must. So it's key. I agree. I think Edward had a question. Edward?
Well, yeah, I think it's a great program. I've heard of it, and it's a wonderful program. But I'm wondering, your 30-40-30 model,
Yes.
how do you do that? I mean, in any one school, how do you get 30% there, high achievers, 30%, and then how do you get them to cooperate with each other? Because they come from different economic backgrounds, different educational backgrounds. How does that work?
That's the beauty of it, right? Like, first of all, when we present to superintendents and principals, we say, look, here are 4 essentials. If you don't run these 4 essentials, you're not running Latinos in Action. So if you want to commit and you want us to come in, before it was tough. Now I'm able to say this. If you want this program, you got to commit to these 4 essentials. And the number one is that it's got to be diversity among diversity, just like diversity is powerful, right? That's when you get different thoughts. You think about Abraham Lincoln and his cabinet, right? It was all diverse. Even people didn't agree with him. And I think our young people need to learn that, especially in the face that in the political arena that we're in right now. Our young people need to know that how to negotiate and how to fend for themselves, but how to work with other people that don't necessarily think like they do or from the same background. So when you have the same cultura but same different background, because a lot of people pin us all under one thing. And I want our young people to know, no, you're different, but you're the same in so many ways. You're Latinos helping and wanting to create movement, but you're going to have to work with people that have not been brought up like you, maybe 3rd, 4th generation Latino here. You're brand new here. How do you work together? So we train the teacher to help them understand how to deliver the pedagogy to help them work together. But let me just say this, Edward, the best way to bring people, and all this, the best way to bring people together is to have a purpose. If there's a purpose, then they come together naturally. And the purpose usually is all these activities that they're doing together. Imagine a project, they have to do it together. But also when they go to the elementary, everything else is forgotten because what's in front of them is this young kid they want to tutor and mentor. So the purpose now becomes the younger kids. And when they know that that's the purpose, all that other stuff flies out of the window and they come together to help that youth, the elementary kid.
But I wonder about enrollment. If you don't have, in any one given school, if you don't have, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 overachievers, do you limit enrollment in the other categories?
No, because let's just say I'm in, I'll tell you a perfect example. I'm in Des Moines, Iowa, because we are, right? And in Des Moines, Iowa, there were, in one of the schools, they didn't even have a lot of newcomers. But then you say, okay, tell me what kids are struggling with their English. It might not be newcomers, or they might not have the high achievers yet, right? And you say, well, let's go to your middle ground student and pick the top from those middle ground students, right, that are doing well. So each percentage, no matter where you're at, that tier is going to look different. But what we want is diversity within that group. So you got to find that. That first class is tough because you almost have to handpick them. But then after that, they go recruit from each tier. And the kids, it's word of mouth. They're like, you got to come join this. And then it just kind of continues to grow. But I agree with you. There's no science to that. There's no, our thing is, this essential is important because we want our kids to understand diversity and how to work within it and how to understand other people that don't look like you, don't sometimes sound like you, but within your own cultura. And isn't that sad that sometimes, this is why I think I want to help people understand Latinos in Action. Like, Latino, we need to come together. We got to stop all this other stuff. We just haven't worked together like we needed to. There's leadership that could be happening, but we work in silos so much, and we're so fragmented, and I think as Latino leaders, it behooves us to teach our next generation that y'all got to work together. You got to stop bringing each other down. Like, who cares who gets the credit? Like, I don't care. Like, let's just do this together. I think and for so many years, we haven't come together. You think about the Asian Chinitos, when they go into any city, country, they work together, and it's just like, boom. And I think that we just need that. And so that's why I do that model.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Enriquez, thank you so much. I'm afraid we're going to have to move on with our meeting, or we're not going to.
Take your meeting. Sorry.
We're going to be here all. No. We would not have, if we didn't want to continue, we wouldn't have been asking you the question. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today. Yes.
You guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate your time and everything you've done. Manuel, gracias.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.
And thank you, Manuel, for inviting Dr. Enriquez.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye. Have a good one.
I don't think we have any non-members on today. I haven't